Hi, and welcome back to another episode of The Breakdown with Bethany. I'm Bethany Braun Silva, and get ready for one heck of an inspiring conversation. Today, my guest is Adrianna Carrig, the founder of the Little Words Project. Yes, I'm wearing these bracelets as we speak. I'm obsessed with them. My friends are obsessed with them. And we're going to hear a little bit about Adrianna's story, how she started the business, how she bootstrapped it for many, many years, how she's balancing it all, although we hate that word, and even what's next for the brand. This is a really, really great conversation if you're interested in getting into business for yourself, if you're looking for a little dose of women empowerment or inspiration. So definitely check it out. I want to just first off say congratulations on the new book
Thank
because that is
you.
such a feat in and of itself. Not only are you like an incredible business owner, a mom, but to put out a book is really something special. So let's start there. And then of course we want to hear all about Little Words Project and how you got that started.
Yeah, of course. No, the book is my newest baby. It's such a cool thing. I never expected. I always wanted to be an author. Like it was always on my list, my, wish list as a person. But I never necessarily, I don't know, thought I'd see my name in print. So it's very cool. Thank you.
I love it. So what is the concept of the book? Tell us about that.
So the book is called The Power of Little Words: How One Kind Word Can Change Everything. And essentially, it's me taking dozens of words that I have leaned on over the past decade and more, right? Because I do bring up stories from my younger years, but that I've leaned on to get through the difficulties that I've encountered in life. And I weirdly have encountered quite a few of them from, dealing with childhood bullying to dealing with, infertility to building a business to, IVF with that infertility and then getting pregnant naturally out of the clear blue sky and then ending up in the NICU for 10 weeks with my second who was premature. And I just felt like throughout my life, I joined these clubs I never wanted to be a part of. And in that journey and in joining those communities, I discovered more about myself, more about what I could handle, what I could navigate, and really wanted to just share with the world the words that got me through all of those moments. And it's a really sweet, bite-sized. I'm calling it like an end table book, right? Which you could just like pick up anywhere and put it down, and just get a little dose of inspiration and confidence and self-love in doing so.
I love that. And it's funny that you say you never sort of imagined your name in print, but words are really like your bread and butter. So
I know.
it makes so much sense. It makes so
It's
much
so
sense.
funny. I was also an English major in college. So like it was literally my dream. Like I wanted to be, well, first I wanted to be an author, then I wanted to be a lawyer, then I wanted to own a business. So now I've kind of gone through it all. I'm not yet a lawyer and probably will never be, but my brother is. So that worked out.
I love it. I love it. And before I even knew the face behind Little Words Project, I was very familiar with the bracelets, especially being in this mom space where we love to wear our kids like
Uh,
initials or names or really like I think mothers especially we lean on those kind of in those words of encouragement, those affirmations. I mean, we kind of always are seeing the big picture, and I think for the most part are trying to do it in a positive way. You
yeah.
mentioned, bullying and stuff like that, and when I heard you speak before, I know that was kind of like part of the inception for the business. But can you take us through a little bit about starting Little Words Project? I know it took a minute or a lot for it to get off the ground. I love the story about you and your mom and dad making the bracelets. I love all of that. I mean, and just in as short as you can. I know it's like a big, big journey, but tell us
Yeah.
about how it started.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, you got it right. It started in my parents' basement in 2013. It's been 11 years, which is insane when I think about it. Because it really does feel like just yesterday that I had the idea to even bring these to my college sorority. So I started a version of it in my college sorority. I called them warm fuzzies. They were bracelets that with words on them that we passed amongst each other and it gave us, warm fuzzy vibes, which is so silly. And in hindsight, I'm grateful that warm fuzzy project was not available when I went to go register with the USPTO. But I think from there it was really just seeing how much that sisterhood responded to the product, and it really built and created and cultivated sisterhood amongst that group of 60 women. I thought to myself, I have dealt with so much negativity my whole life. These words have gotten me through. They're getting me through this journey. My sisters are leveraging them as well to get through their respective journeys. Why couldn't this be something we bring to the masses? And that's really what led to it being a full-blown brand. And so when I graduated, I continued making them. Again, I had made them myself for the sorority. Like I had brought it there. So they gave me their blessing to go out and take it public, if you will. And within the first month, we were profitable, and that was one, a testament to launching in November, right before Christmas, but also two, to the community that it was built upon. Everybody was sharing it, and from there on out, it's been a word of mouth growth. People have just loved what we were doing. They share with their friends and families. Moms were a significant unlock for us. I mean, I was making more name bracelets at a point than I was word bracelets. But it evolved and developed, and people started to understand that, like, yes, you might wear a name that matters to you, but you're also going to wear strength to get you through how difficult it is as a mother, right? And to hopefully one day be able to pay that kindness forward and pass that bracelet along. And that's what makes us different. We're a product that isn't just about inspiring kindness to yourself, but also kindness to others, in that you wear your word for as long as you need it, and then you're supposed to pass it on. And the best part is that every single one has a little code on the back of the tag there. And that code is used, it's unique to that bracelet. And it is used to connect the bracelet to our website, put in your story, why you chose that word, what it's done for you. And then eventually, when you pass it along and the next person does the same, you can begin to track your single act of kindness. You can track where it goes. And also, if you've received it from someone, you can see where it's been and understand the power that it now has, right? Because that's what's happening. We're infusing power as we wear it. And I loved that concept so much. I believe still to this day so wholeheartedly in the power of little words, as my book is titled. And, I think it's been definitely a labor of love over the last decade to go from my parents' basement to getting into national retailers like Nordstrom and Target, to opening our own retail store in 2021 on Bleecker Street, to now having 14 retail stores across the country, most recently opening up a bead bar in Nashville that is going to, I think, be the blueprint for all of our stores going forward, which has that experience component. Um, and it's just insane. It's insane what it's done. I say we're an overnight success, 11 years in the making, because we've only recently gotten some of the like more notable eyeballs on us. Whereas previously it was kind of a best kept secret. Like, if you know, you know, and that community is fierce and strong, and they're really genuinely kind to one another. And it's a beautiful thing to see.
Yeah, that's really amazing. And a lot of the women who listen to this podcast, they are small business owners, or they want to be small business owners. And I think there's a definite difference, or not a difference, but a big jump, if you will, between starting a business and scaling a business. And you have done that over the last decade or so. Can you
Yeah.
give us some tips on how to best scale, even if over a decade? Like how did it work for you?
It's an ever growing process. I'll tell you, it is the hardest thing I've ever done. Probably the hardest part of all is developing and building a team. And that's really the only way to scale, right? Like, you've got to get other people in the seat with you. I've got so many female entrepreneurs that I, loosely mentor or just guide here and there with the occasional question. And almost, all of them have been at this for 5+ years, and they're still doing it alone. And I think, or with their mom, or with their like one other person. And I think we have to not be afraid as entrepreneurs to ask for help. Like, the number one thing you need to do is ask for help. If you don't ask, you'll never receive. And you will be surprised, even in those early days, how many people are willing to do it for free, then how many people are willing to do it for an exchange of some sort, then how many people are willing to do it for like what you can afford, right? Because they just want to get it on the ground floor. Those people might not last with you the whole time, but that's okay, because there are people who are perfect for their different phases of business. And, so long as they see that as a reality as well, then you're kind of, you're in a good spot, right? Like, just being transparent with your team, being as, um, confident in what you're building, that you're going to attract the right people, and then being nimble and flexible and willing to put them in different seats based on what you know you need, and having people who are willing to do that with you, right? It's the by far the hardest feat. So I think it's number one, asking for help. Number two, being okay with relinquishing certain responsibilities because you're gonna have to in order to scale. And then being really creative with your funding, right? Like for me, we were bootstrapped until 9 years in, and that bootstrap took us to 20 million in revenue, and that was just continuing to reinvest in the brand and also be really creative and intentional and scrappy, right? You have to be scrappy, you have to be lean. um, and that's the bootstrap direction. Now there's the funding direction where it could be a little bit more fun maybe, but you got to make sure that you're being intentional with every spend. I almost think that even if you are funded, you should still function like you're bootstrapped because it teaches you lean principles. And that's what has kept us going on a $25 product over the last decade. So yeah, I think the best tips are just find the right team, commit to that, be creative with your spend and intentional with your spend, and hopefully the chips fall where they need to fall. But make no mistake, it is the hardest thing I've ever done, and I'm also a mom. So it's no joke, is that scaling piece. And then one other thing, I know I'm rambling as I tend to do, but don't be too hard on yourself for not scaling at the rate that your brand does, right? And I think for me, I have doubled year over year. This business's revenue has doubled year over year. The product has done that, right? The community has done that. I, in a way, have done that, right, at the helm. But what I haven't necessarily done is doubled year over year as a person, right? Like I'm not 10x the woman I was 10 years ago. Like maybe 5x, right? Like I've definitely grown, and I think a lot of that had to do with entering motherhood. I became a new individual, as we all do, but I certainly have not doubled every year as a leader. And I've had to give myself a lot of grace for that because I really struggle with disappointing my team or disappointing the community. I mean, I'm very mindful of that, and I just have to constantly practice grace, which is one of the key tenets of my book. Like it's okay to fail forward as long as you're moving in one direction, and it's okay to not get it right, and it's okay to not have 100% to give every single day. Like check in with yourself, know what you have in you, and give that, and then you've given 100% in my eyes, right? So I think it's giving yourself grace along the journey. I mean, that's the only thing you can do when you're trying to scale something and you're just a girl. As I like to say, I'm just a girl trying to figure it out.
I think you're doing a good job. I say you're doing a
Thank
pretty
you.
damn good job. And actually, one of the things, well, I admire a lot of things about you, but I think really like the mission of Little Words, the Little Words Project, all of that, it's not fake, right? And I can say that from witnessing, witnessing the brand, meeting with you your launch for your book, and I was seated next to your architect, and I said I was going to bring this up to you when I interviewed you. I could it's not even my story or my brand, but I could get even emotional thinking about it
Oh,
because what she told me about how you guys started working together, and as a result, like where she is now, owning her own firm. I think this is a really important story to tell. And I heard it from her perspective, but I would love to give you an opportunity to talk about how you lifted up this woman and had faith in her, and now she's the head architect on all of your stores. Would you mind sharing that with us?
yeah. I mean, I'm very intrigued to hear her perspective on it because her and I talk, all the time, but it's usually focused on the business side of things. And it's so sweet to see you even get emotional about it because I'm intrigued by what she said. But yeah, from my perspective, I mean, this is a woman who I met at 5 years ago. She was a big customer of the brand. She was a fan of the brands. And she came, and she was always just super friendly and really nice. I learned at this event that she was an architect, and I thought that was so badass. I was like, what? Like she kind of like looks like my long lost sister, and I see her as this like powerhouse, like young brown woman who I'm like, wait a minute, like you're an architect. And for whatever reason, I don't know, I like everybody else, you have in your brain this vision of like this architectural design firm person, and it doesn't look like a little girly pop who you're like not, I just love when I see that, you know? And so I remembered that. And as we were starting this journey of needing an architect, I'm like, honestly, I know somebody who I met, and she's someone who I think could really do this job. And we had stayed in touch, and I reached out, and now fast forward to now, she is a major member of our team and has built something with us that is so incredible that she's established, yeah, her own firm now, and people look at her as the designer of record on all of these major retail stores. And she does an excellent job. In the beginning, it was super collaborative. And then by the end, it's been like everything she shows me, I'm like, yes, done. You get it. You got it. So
Yeah,
it's been very cool.
she shared a very similar story, but she really just also highlighted how much faith you put in her and what a kind of support system you were for her when she was kind of doubting if she could even do those first stores. So I
Yeah.
think that really kind of sums up, if you can tell me if I'm wrong, sort of like what you're all about. And so I think
No,
that's
that's
just,
nice to hear. Yeah.
yeah, it's
To
really just
be.
such a beautiful, beautiful story. And I'm wondering, has anyone done that for you? Like, is there anyone that you could think of who kind of like helped to kind of like, as we're climbing the ladder, it's always so important to reach back, right? And offer a hand. Is there anyone in your life that did that for you?
Totally. I mean, over the past decade, there have been a handful of women who have seen what I was doing from afar and wanted to help me along the way. I mean, I can think of this one woman who, her name's Eileen. She was my first wholesale rep. Like, she was my first rep who got me into some of these retailers. She taught me what a line sheet was. Like, she found me, reached out to me and said, I don't usually do this, but I only rep one other jewelry line and I would love to bring you on. I think what you're doing is amazing. She taught me so much about that, and we entered into wholesale as a result, and it's now my most profitable channel, and it's a huge mix. I mean, it's what led to Target, right? So we've really, and then from there, actually, another woman who the other jewelry owner, actually, that she was working with at the time, her name, she owned the company Lenny and Eva. Her name was Kelly Fitzpatrick, is Kelly Fitzpatrick. And she had reached out and was like, Eileen made the connection, and Kelly was like a little mentor for me for a year, where we actually physically like contracted on a dotted line that she would help guide me in this journey of business ownership and jewelry manufacturing. And they are the ones who set up my QuickBooks account, and I knew how to properly categorize my expenses, which is something, a lot of us entrepreneurs that aren't maybe math minded will leave that to like the accountant. And there's so much that you need to understand when it comes to your expenses, especially if you're bootstrapped, to make sure you're doing things correctly, and not getting burned at tax season, right? So yeah, I mean, those are two that come to mind, and that was early in the days. But ever since, there's a lot of other female founders out there that just, they want to get on calls and support one another and connect and talk. And then there are others who, aren't as willing or as open. And I think the game is connecting as much as you can with the people that are gonna lift you up, and not allowing yourself to be frustrated or feel let down by the people who don't, because they're gonna exist too.
Let's talk motherhood, because as we're talking, my son literally just like no school today. So,
Yeah,
um,
yeah, that was
I
mine as well.
there you go.
There
I'm
you
always
go.
like, and I hate this question. I've been a motherhood and parenting journalist for over 12 years, and I'm like, how? And the word balance is so triggering, but I'm like, I have to know everybody's, how are they doing it, right? You have little ones, mine are 9 and 12. It kind of, I guess, is easier in some ways, harder in others. But I remember when my children were little, kind of feeling like I mean, so burnt out. So I would love to just like check in with you. How are you, like, from the minor things to the bigger things, like motherhood, owning a business, running a business, a successful business? How is
Yeah.
that all going?
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you for even just saying check in with you, because I try to check in with myself as often as I can, and I have armed myself with what I can only consider to be an army. Like, it's not even a village, it's an army, and we're all at war together. And the opponents are my children. Like, it is so hard. It is so hard. It is so hard. I don't have words for it. I feel for every woman who has to do this, regardless of business ownership or what have you. I feel for every woman who doesn't have that village or that support system or the means to hire that support system if they don't have it organically through family. It is I don't know if we can curse on here, but it is
Yeah.
fucking impossible. And I am literally blown away every day by what we're able to accomplish. My husband and I both working at this company and having little ones, 3 and 1, right? Both of whom had crazy enterings to this world. And we've had to just navigate all those things. And all I can say is people are really resilient. Like we have so much capacity that we don't even realize we have, women especially, mothers especially. um I know that we live in a culture where people are starting to take a turn more towards a world of like slower life and making sure that you're spending time with your the right time with your children. And I struggle with that because I'm also someone who, like, when I closed my eyes as a little girl, I saw myself being a mom, but I also saw myself being a boss somewhere. Like I knew I was going to like be in charge of my own life, right? Whether I was a high-powered lawyer, I was a writer, I was a CEO, like I saw all of that. It was never either or. And it shouldn't have to be. And I think there's so many things that need to be fixed, obviously, for us to feel like we still can do both, without feeling like it's a must, but rather if it's a desire, then it should be. Um, but anyway, I digress. I can go full bore into that. All I will say is you're right. Balance is a myth. I don't think it's real. I think that you do your best every day. And what I will say, I kind of touched on it earlier, is I'll wake up in the morning and say, okay, what do I have to give today? And if the answer is 60%, then great, I'll give 60% and that'll be enough. And that's 100%, right? Like I gave what I had to give in both areas. And I'm just very lucky on the motherhood side. I have a wonderful husband and partner who we don't, subscribe to gender norms in my household. So he handles so much that a typical, woman of the house, mother of the home would do, so that I can get the extra sleep in the morning, so that I can keep my schedule what it needs to be as someone who's expected to be like out in front and behind the scenes. Like that's a big responsibility for a brand. But then also that I have a village of incredible women around me. My mom helps with my family and my kids and helps cook. I've got a woman who used to be one of our beaters who, we were going to have to move away from having in the office. And I was like, just come to my house. I don't know what you're going to do yet, but you're going to help. And it's going to be great. And now she's also one of the people that helps with the children and basically
Right.
is their preferred person is Lulu. Like they don't want anybody else but freaking Lulu. I'm like, okay, great. Then Lulu will sleep with you every night too. No. And then I have Nicole, who was my EA at Little Words. And then she transitioned to being full blown at my, like almost PA at my house with the kids. Because when I was in the NICU, she didn't really have another choice. We needed somebody to help with Ford and my first. So anyway, this is a long-winded way of saying, and I'm sure every mom listening can relate to this kind of all over the place response. And that's what it is. It's all over the place. It's just survival at this point, and every single day is a race to the finish. And the only thing that I really try to do and really want to do better is being present and trying to not have to have both my husband and I on our phones as our kid is trying to talk to us. And now he's at an age where he's like, get off your phone. And it kills us. We're like, I know. I'm like, baby, we're working. And they're like, stop working. And I'm like,
They
you're
don't
right.
care. Like they don't care what's happening on the
They
phone.
don't get, yeah. And I'm like, I don't want you to think I'm just like hanging out, scrolling IG. Like I'm answering this Slack message that is super timely. And like, I have to think, and it's get off your phone, get off your phone. And I'm just like, so it's hard.
Hard. Oh my goodness, Adriana, thank you so much for your transparency, all of your
Oh
words
yeah.
of wisdom. I can't thank you enough for the time, for the advice, for all the just incredible lessons. I would love to just like wrap it up with a word, if you have one for us, like for wherever you're at right now in this moment, like a word that we could, I don't know, take away from this conversation.
Yeah, it's so funny, it's so timely, and yes, transparency is like my superpower and maybe my fault and that I just talk too much. But I'll transparently let you in. I have a coach that I work with. And I think my point of what I was trying to say just there is like, don't try to do it alone. Be okay with investing in yourself, in your career, in your work life. And in that, if you want to work, it's okay to invest in the village around you to help you get there. That's okay. And you should feel empowered to do that, even if you're just net, but you get to go be out of the home if that's what you want and if that's what you have the choice to do, right? Recognizing there's so many realities that are at play there. But I like to empower women to feel that way if they can. So that's one. But that same thing can be applied to everything you do. And I think that's the theme of today's conversation is like invest in a team, invest in people to help you get there because we shouldn't be heroes alone, right? Like we can do it all with help. You can't do it all alone. And so to that, I share that I also have a business coach that I work with who she just kind of is my life coach now and just helps me through what I'm feeling. It's part therapist, part coach, part all the things. And we just had a session yesterday where I shared with her that, this is a really hard business to be in. It's a really delicate brand. We are about kindness and about empowering one another and being kind to yourself. And it's very hard to do that and build a business with that at its crux because it's so delicate, right? Like you disappoint one person and they have one experience with you that falls short of the expectation they have of you, and it like is jarring and it's painful for you, it's just like it's a tough spot to be in, right? And so I say all this because I've been recently feeling like the story I've told myself my whole life is that I am hated, whether it be from bullying or dealing with negativity from others or disappointing my parents or whatever. Like it's my trauma that I work through is that I am hated. And that's the story I tell myself even now. Like, I don't want my team to hate me. I don't want my husband to hate me. I don't want my kids to hate me. Like, it's such a powerful word. And she just woke me up yesterday to like, well, we have to change the words, right? Words are powerful. And so my new mantra and my new word right now, if you will, my new little word that I'll be wearing is I am loved. And I think even just saying that gives me the chills. And we need to all remember that we are loved. We are loved. We are good enough. We are enough. And even if it feels hard, or even if it feels like it's there, the journey is insurmountable from here to the destination that we want to achieve, which we all, I'm sure, feel that way. As long as you feel loved along the way, like that's half the battle, right? So that's my word. That's my word for you. It's my word for the listeners.
I'm gonna drop this mic.
Adopt it, wear it on your wrist, get a custom little word. I am loved. And I literally asked my team to make that for me so I can add it to my stack because I really do use these things to get through the days, honestly. So yeah, thank
I
you.
love it. That's another thing I want to say. If you ever run into Adrianna in person, she will give you a bracelet. She has millions of her own.
I will. So long as I'm like, I'm not the only ones I cannot give right now. I have that I'm like obsessed with are author, which my editor made for me. And I'm like, okay, that's mine. And then I have beat the odds, which one of the senior leaders on my team gifted me earlier this year at an offsite because I was sharing that with her. I'm not doubling year over year. I don't know how I'm going to do this. And I'm just letting you all know. And she was like, you're going to beat the odds. And it was a really cool moment. And so yeah, these things are powerful. They carry real meaning. They make things better. They're just special. I'm not just a Swift fan. I'm also I really believe in the power of words.
It shows. It shows. And thank you so much for the time. I know you're a busy woman, so I really, really appreciate it. And I hope that we can connect again in some way, somehow later on down the road. So thank you so much.
Absolutely, we will. Thank you, Bethany.